In this video, we're going to look at pushing through with establishing creative behaviors when times get really tough, and the importance of practicing consistency even when you really don't want to. Just like in our previous video on establishing creative behaviors, yes, consistency is key. And by using the things in this video, you'll be equipping yourself to establish the foundations for long-term success. In this video, we're going to focus specifically on how to practice consistency when you don't want to, when the joy or the initial allure of practicing a new behavior has worn off. That's really when the work needs to be done and the effort really needs to be put into maintaining that consistency. So in this video, we're going to look at some of the practices that I've used and the creators around me have used to really buckle down and recognize the intensity of the effort that it takes to establish that new behavior. We're also going to look at the process for elevating behaviors into habits and the regular consistency necessary to achieve that. It's been 2 weeks since our first video on establishing creative behaviors, and if you are true to your commitment and affirmation of committing to be consistent with creativity for 15 minutes a day, you have achieved 3.5 hours in progress of your creative mission than you would have if you've done nothing. And that's really expressing the value of the compounded effort that we're talking about here, is that 15 minutes a day is extremely achievable, and yet over 2 weeks the time would have passed anyway. You have now accumulated 3.5 extra hours that would otherwise not have been there. And you've also affirmed to yourself that you are a writer, and you are starting to make more smaller decisions that you believe a writer would make to welcome more creativity into your lifestyle. So the title of the video is Making It Through the 4th Week and the Importance of Habit Building. So what do I mean by 4th week? I don't literally mean the time, the 4th week in your new creative practice. What I mean is the dark times, the isolation times, the times when your narrative looks extremely patchy, when your character sheets just aren't filled out right, or when the situations in your story aren't working correctly, or maybe you keep circling on your plan. What I'm talking about is when the emotions start to turn negative or start to turn sour, and we start to lose that consistency because of that, is the time when we need to practice it the most. And during this time, you must be disciplined, right? And we're going to talk more about the difference of discipline and motivation, and the importance of being disciplined and committing to the process of consistency with a constant reminder of your overall plan and clear vision of your creative process and clear vision of your creative mission and direct goals you're hoping to achieve with your project. Things that help me in times like this, in creative lulls, or just when I'm trying to establish a new behavior and I'm feeling a back step, is convincing myself or establishing a mindset that the easiest part of anything is the first 90%. And in fact, it is the final 10% that is more difficult than the first 90 combined. And for that, I generate within myself a mindset that means that the closer I get to finishing, the harder I have to work and the clearer my focus has to become. Most of the things that I've done in my life, the easiest part has been the first 90%. And I can rush through that with great ease. But it's that last 10% that really weighs me down. And there was one point in my life when I had many unfinished projects because of this 10%. Now, it's often been my experience that in order to eclipse this 10%, I had to summon the effort and the energy that I had applied to the project in that whole 90% and direct it all on the final completion tasks. Now, this for you may just be planning. And there's differences in achievement here, is that if you've never written before, is that simply by practicing the 15 minutes a day is a massive achievement. Now, in that time when I had a lot of unfinished projects, this unawareness, so being unconscious of this behavior within myself, was detrimental. But as soon as I was aware of it, even though it's and seeing that 10% and being scared of it essentially, and not addressing it and not attacking it head on is itself a weakness, the awareness of it became a strength. So an awareness that is how I tend to respond to large-scale projects has now given me the skills and techniques able to address that with great strength. The second thing that helps me in this process, and we're going to cover this in a separate video later in the series, but is establishing micro rewards for myself along my own creative journey. Now, what we're dealing with here is a delayed gratification process, and generally it doesn't come until we have a tangible product in front of us, which in the process of creativity or the process of writing can often be quite a long time. So because this is our investment, we are investing in this delayed gratification of the creative process, it's important to take some of the compound interest of the short-term gratification as well in order to fuel that motivation and fuel the energy we need to complete our project. It's important to set milestones that are relevant to yourself. If you've never written before and you've engaged every single day for 15 minutes in a creative way, that is by reading creatively or having a creative conversation or writing and producing an output, that is a massive, massive step forward and should be recognized. If you are a regular writer and able to produce 5,000 words easily a week, and we've been able to introduce to you an increase to 7,500 words, you should also look at that as an equal achievement of progression. And really that's what it's all about, is establishing your own milestones and rewarding them appropriately. So if it's ordering in Uber Eats, if it's watching the extra episode of Netflix, there's a little window there of opportunity to treat yourself and really recognize the process that you're involved in. And thirdly, it's really about getting comfortable in your chair. When we are dealing with the discipline of maintaining consistency in creative practice, it is about being comfortable for a long period of time. You are a writer. The writing will just come. It's important to be comfortable in your chair. And what I mean by that could literally be your chair. And I find that switching chairs or switching positions is an incredibly effective way to maintain your endurance. A chiropractor once said to me that the best position, the best posture is the next one, meaning that if you're sitting, try and either sit in a different chair or stand if you have a standing desk, or sit in a different environment. And this changing, it just helps your general posture and fatigue and endurance, which really over a long period of time comes into play with back and neck issues when we're engaging in this activity. I find changing locations, be it some creators talk about an energy in a space, and that you can actually suck a space dry of its creativity if you overwork or are overexposed to the area. And so creating a change in locations and different places where you can achieve different things, I find, is a really effective way to maintain that consistency and to make it feel like you're not just going into the same room every single day to produce the same things. Because when you end up in a period where you're not producing, that feeling will be compounded by the monotony of the same location and the same surroundings. It's also by exposing ourselves to different surroundings and different locations that we find the greatest spark of creative inspiration. You could change creative activities. If you're reading and it feels dreary, try watching, right? YouTube is a fantastic resource for engaging with creative people and creativity. And you could try writing, right? This is the whole premise of why we're here, the progression of our projects. And if you're cycling between those three, it can keep it fresh and inspiring, as what we're trying to do for the creative mission and the creative project is engaging with creativity, not just focusing on the progression of outputs and I didn't get X amount achieved today, so I should feel down. And if all else fails, do something completely different. When I am tapped out of my creative muscle, I need to work with my hands. I need to build something. I need to clean something. I need to see a direct, tangible result for my efforts. The work that we're engaged in here, you don't really get that opportunity. Very rarely do you get to leave even the best writing session. I'm talking about a 5,000 word day. For me, that's a really good writing session. It's not like it's not the same feeling as when you walk away from something you've built, or a tangible environment that was once chaos and is now order because of your effort. So recognizing yourself when you are just beating your figurative head against a figurative wall in the writing world, that it is okay sometimes to take a break, walk away, because you tried and you maintain that consistency. The most important thing in times when you do not feel like being creative is to maintain a creative consistency for a minimum of 15 minutes a day, like we agreed in this program. And removing common barriers is a fantastic way to achieve that. For me, it's easy to go to the gym when I want to go, and it's incredibly difficult to go when I don't want to go. So I have to focus all of my time and energy on convincing myself or pushing myself to go when I don't want to go. I don't need to spend any of that energy convincing myself when I want to go. And it's the same with creativity, is that oftentimes I would experience, if I was getting ready for the gym and I didn't have the right shirts, it would just welcome a vulnerability to present myself when I go down the other path. I go down the path of not working out, or not, in this case, being creative. And similarly for not being able to find my headphones, oh well, I can't have music. Same way, I won't work out. I address these common barriers by going out to Good Sammy's and buying a range of t-shirts that I could just grab without thinking, put on, and go to the gym. And I address the music by having a pair of headphones always in my bag ready to go as a type of grab and go without thinking. And it's removing these barriers that does increase my consistency. Similarly with creativity, and especially by now with the records you've been keeping, you'll be recognizing what things are pulling you away most consistently from being creative. And you can take steps to address them or substitute them to maintain a greater focus on the creative practice. If you say things like you can't remember ideas, download a notepad app, or like I did, carry a notepad and pencil with you at all times. If you say you can't find the time, practice the time techniques that we talked about in the first video about establishing behaviors and see if you can make the time. It's important to remind ourselves that we are in full control of how we invest our time, and to say that we don't quite have the time isn't really a full recognition of that ability. And if you say you struggle with inspiration, you must write, and write some more. And it is by this consistency, this consistent process, that you will discover the foundational practice necessary to become a writer. And you'll understand that inspiration is a momentary spark that feeds into that process. And if you have that process well established, the time that inspiration comes to you from reading creatively, from engaging in creative conversation, or writing yourself, you will be greatly accelerated towards completion and your success. Whereas if you have inspiration, that spark, without that well-established process, it's extremely likely you'll develop a fantastic 90% of a story and leave the other 10% because there wasn't the established practices to get those creative projects over the line. And remember that you're in control, and really it's about consistency, not output. So sitting down regularly is more important than producing a lot. And it's in these dark times that is most important, more important than anything else. Another thing you can do is go back to your plan. Oftentimes I find that when I'm not able to be creative or as a free-flowing creative process, it's because my plan isn't as well developed as I thought it was. So revising this plan, going back and tweaking it to based on my realistic outcomes, so the things recorded in my journal of the sessions I'm having and the outputs I'm producing or the things I'm engaging with, and adjusting that to reflect a more realistic and achievable outcomes for where I'm going, or where my story's taking me, or how my character is going to interact. I think of establishing creative behaviors like starting an old World War II era plane. The push start motors where the starter was actually on the propeller, and they would grab the propeller and pull down, and sometimes the engine would catch first time, but often the blades would chug and not go anywhere. This is really how I feel with starting new creative projects, but as establishing creative consistency as a whole, is that the first few times you will do it, maybe with the same project, it will feel like you are chugging that engine, and you may push those blades and they may chug around only a few times and stop. But you must keep pushing, because I guarantee you will feel this change in energy when the engine takes over, when the engine starts up and those blades are running themselves and you're keeping up with it. I'll leave you with this affirmation for the week. It's about creative inspiration. You can say this in the mornings or in the evenings or both, or just throughout the day, or not at all. And it is, creative inspiration follows me everywhere I go, in the things I read, in the art I enjoy, and the conversations I have inspire me to create. I am overjoyed now that creativity comes to me with very little difficulty.